tonight. This is our second presentation today, Bert. So you're definitely getting a lot of experience with this. You probably don't even need the slides anymore, Bert. You can probably just go off the top of your head. But this is our presentation again for the entire Westfield community on our new elementary school project. And I will, members of the school building committee are with us today. I see we have a few members of public or numbers that we don't recognize. So I hope they're community members that are joining out of interest. And if, again, we're here to answer any questions tonight. We're here to address any concerns that people may have. There will be more of these, of course, in the future, but this is kind of where we are as of right now. And so the mayor does act as our chair of the school building committee. Tammy is the vice chair, for those of you who are unaware of that. I also just want to recognize that there are members of the Westfield Public School leadership team here tonight too. So thank you again for joining us. And I will start off. So we have Bert Gardner, who's from KO Umbenic, and he's going to be presenting tonight. And Dan Pilata is with us too. He is the project manager of this new elementary school, and he is available for any questions. And of course, any member of the school building committee and myself, we can answer any questions along the way. So Bert, take it away.
All right. Okay, I think people can see the slides. I'll actually bump them to the beginning. I had it open here. All right, so I'll actually let Dan kind of introduce the project and what the MSBA process is and where we're at within that process. And then once he's finished with that, I'll jump in and I'll kind of walk you through where we're at with the design of the building and how we got there. So
here we go again. You're tossing it back to me, huh?
Yep.
Well,
well, I was thinking, the superintendent said that I don't need the slides. I was actually kind of thinking that they probably don't need us, Dan, at this point. They've heard it enough times.
So, good evening, Westfield. My name is Dan Pilata. I'm the project manager for the Franklin Avenue project. The Franklin Avenue project is an MSBA core project. The city is no stranger to MSBA. MSBA is a state assistance program in which you actually contribute with your sales tax. So when you buy a candy bar, when you buy a shirt, when you buy anything that has sales tax on it, 1 cent of that sales tax is dedicated to school buildings. Westfield, we did, I think 5 or 6, 7 schools boilers with this program. And we did 2 roofs or 3 roofs with this program over the past decade. So we're no stranger to the MSBA process. The core process is a little different than the repair process, in that it takes 5 to 7 years to go from start to finish. And there are 7 modules to which we go through, and we are currently in between module 3 and module 4, which we have up on the slide today. Module 3 is the feasibility study portion. The MSBA had invited Westfield to the feasibility program about a year ago, I think, and the first task of feasibility is to create the team. And that was the hiring of the OPM first, and then the OPM assists the building committee in hiring the designer. And then we actually try to figure out what the problem is that we're going to solve. MSBA asked us to study a few things. One was to study Franklin Ave alone, and the other one was to study Franklin Ave and Abner Gibbs joining together. So we have gone down that path, and as part of feasibility, we came up with what we call our preferred solution, and our preferred solution is going to be a new school, and Bert is going to go into that shortly. The schematic design process will begin, has sort of kind of begun now, where we're take the pretty pictures that we drew to show that everything could fit, and the geotechnical work to show that the soils can support a new school. We take that and we start developing it. So over the next couple of months during the summer, which your building committee has graciously, and I mean graciously, agreed to come to work every 2 weeks for the next 3 months so that we can try and get this schematic design completed and get to module 5, which is funding the project. So we are going to show you what the preferred schematic is, and we're going to talk a little bit about the process. You can just go to the next slide there, Bert. This is you probably can't read it, but it's basically a scorecard of the things that we have to do to get the authorization to proceed forward with each individual module. On the feasibility study, we've submitted all the tasks, and we've received our first bit of feedback from MSBA, and we will be scheduled for the facility assessment board of the MSBA, probably in early May or to mid-May. They have 2 meetings in May. We'll be in one of the 2 meetings, and that's really for the MSBA to truly understand and check and balance everything that the school building committee has done and the educators have done. The first document we sent in under module 3 had 13 options in it, and it was 5.5 inches thick, and your staff worked at nights and weekends to get that document put together in conjunction with the designer and the OPM. You can go to the next slide. The PDP, which I had indicated was the beginning, and the PSR, which we've just submitted, PSR meaning preferred schematic report, where we've determined that the best solution for the city of Westfield is going to be a new school, and the new school will be completed in both schools will move into the new school at once. And once they've moved into the new building, we'll then remove the old building and create the fields and playgrounds in kind of a second phase of the project. There you go. Schematic design, it gets a little more robust, and it gets to the point where people are going to start making a little more comments. The design of the facades come into play, and we'll have more reviews with the public, and you'll get to see what the school's going to look like. How does it fit in? What will it look like from Franklin Ave? What will it look like from Franklin Street? How does the traffic work? How's the circulation inside going to work? And we start getting really detailed on the inside of the building to make sure that the educators have all the tools necessary for a school that will be state of the art for the next 50 years. We talked about schedule today, and I have to say that Stefan, I did make a mistake. I was off by a year. It's April 22nd of 2024. Because for somehow in my head, I thought we were in 2020. We're in 2021. So the move-in date for the new school will be is targeted for April 22nd, 2024, which means that when we get the funding agreement signed, sealed, and delivered, which should occur sometime before December, we'll spend that following winter and spring putting the bid documents together so that the project goes out to bid during the summer of 22, and then construction will be all of 23 with wrapping up early in 24. And that brings us to Bert's wonderful presentation that he's done so efficiently. It'll be quick and easy for him. So Bert, you're up, and Bert is our designer, and he has listened to all of us, changed the things that Westfield didn't like of the original designs, pushed things around, and we've come to the point now where we've got an actual school that we're kind of excited about. So you're up, Bert.
All right, thanks, Dan. As Dan mentioned, my name is Bert Gardner. I'm with Kalo and Beanick Architects. We're right here in Chicopee, so we're local, and then hopefully able to meet all of your needs quickly and responsibly. I think we kind of pride ourselves on that and take a lot of local jobs for that reason. So This is just a quick graphic that shows the location of Westfield's 11 schools. As Dan mentioned, we're focusing on this project at Abner Gibbs, which is number 2 on the map, and Franklin Avenue, number 3 on the map. And the goal of the project is to consolidate those into a single new school building on the Franklin Avenue site. Back in October of this year, seems like a lot longer than that, but it was in October, the city hosted a series of 5 visioning workshops, which were comprised of the educators in town, elected officials, some business leaders, and other local stakeholders. There's probably a group of, I don't know, 20 to 30 people, I would say. And we met over a series of 5 different workshops to kind of talk about what the ideal school for Westfield would be. What would, if you've got this opportunity to build a new school, what would we like to see come out of that opportunity? Following that, taking the notes and the information that were kind of collected in that process, the educators then went and developed a very robust document that's called the educational program. And this document describes how they currently deliver their curriculum to students and how that might change with the prospect of a new school building and the latest technologies. So it's very descriptive. And that's the document, or one of the documents, that we consistently go back to and refer to when we're laying out the building and kind of coming up with the design ideas for the building, to make sure that what we're doing isn't just the child of our own creativity, but really reflects the wishes and the specific needs of Westfield, to make sure that the school really responds to the way they want to teach the students as they go through the system. So reflected in that document and in the visioning process, there are these overriding project goals that we've kind of pulled out of all the pieces of information. These, I'm going to try not to read all the slides, but this one I'll just kind of read through so that we hit all the points, and then the later slides kind of touch on how we respond to each of these goals. So early on, there was a strong desire to kind of increase the presence of the school on Franklin Street and to minimize the traffic in the residential neighborhood. Anyone who's kind of driven through the streets at any time of day, you know that they're narrow. A lot of cars park on the shoulders, and so two-way traffic's not always possible. You're often stopping, waiting for a car coming in the opposite direction. You can imagine, if you haven't been in the neighborhood, how that might be compounded with the flow of traffic and buses during drop-off times and pickup times for school. So that was a really strong desire of pretty much all the stakeholders right at the onset. We also wanted to create a new building that was truly a new school community, not just an expanded or a larger building on the Franklin site that could accommodate the Abner Gibbs students. But we wanted this to feel like a new school for all of the students, in a whole new community, a whole new experience for everybody, so that there were no real visitors to the program, that everybody felt like this was an effort, a city effort, targeted to them, that this is something Westfield is doing for these students collectively. And moving in together was a big piece of that. If we could get both of the schools to move into the building at the same time, I think it was agreed by everybody that was a really critical piece of creating that new community feel. We want to make sure that we provide a healthy, flexible environment for learning. Obviously, we want the building to support the educational program in every way possible. We want to support anytime, anywhere learning. This is really about, sparking curiosity and getting kids interested in the learning opportunities that are all around you. So there's, well, it's kind of a self-driven exercise. There's a lot of ways that the architecture and the built environment can kind of encourage that. Provide connections to the natural world. As we all know, these two schools are both located in the downtown section of Westfield. Really kind of an urban feel to it, not a lot of open green space, certainly not at the Abner Gibbs School. So we want this new building to have a lot of connections outside, a lot of opportunities for students to kind of play and explore, even in their lesson plans, the natural environment around them. We want to support increased project-based learning with the new building. Westfield's actually got a very strong project-based learning, hands-on kind of real-world learning program already established. We want to make sure that the new school building continues to support that and offers opportunities for that program to continue to grow. One when we were looking at kind of big picture whole school diagrams, it was decided that academic neighborhoods that are arranged by grade level was the desired organizational strategy. So we want to make sure that the new school provides that kind of an organization. We've got a very strong PBIS program in Westfield, which is, give me 1 second to collect my thoughts because I know I've got it right this time. It's positive behavioral intervention strategies. And these are run by the adjustment counselors in the program or in the building. So each of the 2 schools has their own counselor right now. We want to make sure that we're maintaining that level of service to the students in the new building. Want to support both large and small performances. You know, younger kids aren't often ready to stand on stage in front of a full capacity venue. So we want to make sure that we've got opportunities for those large venues, end of year shows and things, but also for some smaller venues that are more intimate. We're bringing a pre-kindergarten program to the school. There'll be 2 half-day, well, 60 students, which equates to 2 classrooms operating on a half-day schedule. We want to make sure we provide clear public and academic zones in the building. The last one here is foster a positive relationship between school and community. Those 2 kind of work together. We want this building to be a community resource. The city really wants this to be an inviting place that people want to be at. So it's important that we're able to, after hours, isolate the academic zones of the building. There's no reason, you know, if someone's there for a basketball game on a Saturday or for a technology exhibition, you know, in the evening, that they need to get into the classroom wing. So we're able to isolate those parts of the building and just have the public zones remain available to the public. As Dan mentioned, we started the preliminary design program, the first submission we made to MSBA with 13 options. As we entered into the PSR phase, that was narrowed down to what evolved into 6 options, essentially. MSBA requires us to carry a base repair option. The base repair option will only bring the building up to the current code and stabilize it structurally, make sure that you don't have any major systems at the end of their life that aren't replaced. So it will take care of that kind of thing. The pie charts underneath kind of indicate in red, green, and yellow how successful each option is in supporting those primary goals that we talked about in the last slide. So you can see a base repair doesn't really meet any of the educational goals, and it can't introduce new systems like technology, infrastructure, and things. It's just basically making sure that what's there now is functional for the years to come. Design alternative 02D1 was an add reno option that we looked at. Franklin Avenue Elementary School, despite being fairly old at this point, has some really nicely sized classrooms with lots of daylight in them, and a good amount of storage too. So they're kind of as a vanilla box, very good rooms, and the building itself is in good physical condition for given its age. So we did want to look at it and explore a add reno option. Design alternative 02D1 or E1, I'm sorry, is a single story, all new construction. You can kind of see comparing the add reno and this one, the gray L here is the existing school. And you can kind of see that the new building in a single story overlaps that. That leads to phasing issues where we would have to build enough classrooms of the new building to accommodate the students in Franklin Avenue so that they could move in. And then we take down the old building, finish the rest of the classroom so that the Avenue students can come in. And that's really what the red 3% is there. There was, again, that strong desire that both school populations really need to move into the building at the same time. Design alternative 02E2 was trying to shrink it by going to 2 stories, but we still had a little bit of an overlap there between the new building and the existing footprint of the current school. Design alternative 02E3, we're able to shrink it far enough to get outside that footprint, but this was a 3-story option, and I think that unanimously the stakeholders that we presented this to all agreed that 3 stories was just not the right scale of a building for the neighborhood that it's in. It would just be it would kind of dwarf the neighboring houses and not not something that was pursued very far beyond the initial thought of how to get out of the footprint. In design alternative 02E4, we were pushed a little bit harder, and we came up with a 2-story solution that still remained outside of the footprint of the existing school. So added benefits to this scheme, you can kind of just see if I flip back one slide to some of the 1-story schemes, you're really limited in how much site or green space is developed around the building. By the time we get to this consolidated footprint of the 2-story building, staying outside the existing school footprint, it opens the whole north half of the site up for development as recreational fields, outdoor classrooms, playgrounds, and even some tree groves and natural kind of environments that can be developed on the site. So now I'll start back with the first overriding kind of goal of the project was to increase the presence on Franklin Street and pull traffic out of the residential neighborhood. As you can see in the kind of aerial view here, one of the early challenges we had was, okay, well, how do we do that? We've got just a very narrow tract of land that reaches out to Franklin Street. And the existing school itself is kind of centrally located in what's left over. So there was a lot of challenges on where we position the building, how we would really increase the presence on Franklin Street if the building is essentially going to be limited to the green space here to the south of the existing school. And this would be just limited to being able to bring vehicle traffic in and out of the building. Fortunately for us, the city was very proactive in helping in this challenge, and they were able to purchase the 2 adjacent properties between the school site and the National Guard base. Part of it was very fortuitous in the timing. I believe at least one of those 2 houses was going up for sale. And I think things just worked out that we were able to kind of seize that opportunity. I don't think it was as smooth as that, but it worked out. And then the second property owner was also approached, and Dan mentioned this morning that both of these were very amicable sales. I don't think that I think that both of the residential owners were happy to kind of do this. There's an opportunity for them as well as the school, so kind of a mutually beneficial situation. But as you can see, the result is we've got a very nicely shaped or regular geometry to the site. We've got the full width of the site basically to bring a school footprint forward and to develop access to the site for vehicles and pedestrians off of Franklin Street. And that's what this slide is showing here. You can clearly see that we've been able to pull the whole school so that it's easily visible. It's about the same plane as the National Guard base for people driving by. If you want to kind of picture in your mind about how far off the street that the new school would be, that's pretty much in the same plane as the National Guard building. That gives us room in front of the school for a one-way bus loop and about 12 visitor parking spaces. And then between the school and the National Guard base, we've got room for a one-way parent drop-off lane, and then a 2-way access into the parking lot between the drop-off lane and the fence to the National Guard property. So clearly, we're able to pull all of the school traffic at this point out of the Franklin Street neighborhood, and we're also able to provide good pedestrian access to the school too, separate from the vehicles. You can kind of see to the right of the plan here, we've also got a separated and kind of tucked to the back circulation for service and delivery vehicles. This area would be gated off as a multi-use play space so that we can close the gates during recess or a gym class or something, and that can become a hard surface for any kind of recreational activities there, and just open the gates on scheduled times for any kind of deliveries or pickups that happen at the service area. The next piece was the phasing of the project. As I said, it was really important to the building committee, to the school department, and really all the stakeholders that we talked to on the project, to make sure that when we provide this new school, that it's a completely new community for both the Abner Gibbs and the Franklin Avenue students. So this diagram kind of shows us how we foresee the phasing of the project happening. Phase 1, we'll have to take down there's a small outbuilding on the property that they go to for art and music right now. Those classes will be moved, or the teacher will just kind of travel to the classrooms where that program will be delivered at this point, or during construction. And you can see though, at that point, once that's out of the way, they've got, the contractor has access to the whole south half of the site, which is more than enough for them to kind of move around, do their staging, and build the entire school new building in one shot without having any swing space or anything like that needed. Once that is completed, or while that's being completed, you can see that we've still got full access to the existing school. The kitchen remains serviceable and accessible, so you don't have to do any kind of remote food service that's delivered to the school. Everything can continue to operate exactly as it does today, with the one exception that art and music teachers will roam from classroom to classroom rather than having a room of their own to deliver their programs in. There will be slightly less outdoor space, but more than enough to accommodate outdoor play at recess and gym. And we've still got all the parking and the regular traffic routes that are occurring today. We'll continue through that phase one of the building project. In phase two, both the Abner Gibbs and the Franklin students will move into the new building at the same time. Once they're all in the new school, then the contractor will kind of shift all of their operations to the north half of the site, and they'll, take down the existing building and construct the recreational fields, the playground space. We've got some outdoor gardens and just other nice site amenities that will happen. This is where the biggest impact probably actually occurs for the school operations, in that we do truly have limited outdoor access in this phase of the project. Fortunately, as Dan said, we're aiming for an April move. So this window should really be limited between, April, the return of April vacation, through June when kids get out for the summer, and then the rest of it should hopefully wrap up in the summertime. So you've got full access again when you come back in the fall. There is still outdoor areas. There'll be outdoor recreational areas in the courtyard, that open courtyard to the east of the building. And we've got the hardscape again up where the receiving area is that we'll be able to use for, gym or, foursquare activities or other kind of recreational activities on a paved area. We want to make sure that we're providing a healthy and flexible environment. So there's kind of two pieces to this, but the healthy piece is fairly easy these days. Not that it's technically easier to create a healthy building today than it has been in the past, but I think that there's more awareness of it today than there was, say, 15 or 20 years ago. And there's programs established to kind of help get owners to healthy schools. One of them is the CHIPS program, which is California High Performance Schools. There's a Northeast region component to that program, and then there's also LEED that I think people are much more familiar with, the LEED program, or at least by name, they hear LEED certified buildings. So those are the two options that we had to choose from working with MSBA, and the building committee voted to pursue a LEED certified project on this school. What that means is that we'll get health declarations from the manufacturers of different products that are going in the building, attesting to the fact that they're not putting harmful chemicals into their products, and things like that. There'll be low VOCs from the materials that are put in the school, so you don't have a lot of off-gassing after the building is built. And even at that, we still flush out the building at the end of the construction project to make sure that it's all fresh air and everything is clean. Another thing with the LEED program that we're pursuing in Westfield is a high energy performance, or exemplary energy performance, which gets the district or the city an additional 2% reimbursement points with the MSBA grant. Looking more specifically about how we create healthy and flexible environments with the building itself, instead of just the program we're following, I kind of took a classroom as an example of what we try to do. Again, we want to make sure there's lots of daylight, fresh air, outside views, and then the flexibility to adapt to different pedagogies that that might be used in the classroom as teachers are helping their kids learn their different lessons. So you can see we're going to make sure that classrooms have lots of windows, and these windows will be operable, at least to some extent, so that we will be able to bring fresh air. The mechanical systems themselves will ensure that there's fresh air if the windows are never opened. With carbon monoxide detectors, they'll basically, the more people are in the room, it'll sense that and it'll bring more fresh air in as needed to make sure that the air is always fresh. But there's that comfort level, there's the sound of the birds, just something nice about being able to open a window that will actually help students be more engaged too throughout the day. So we will have operable windows. We'll make sure that the furnishings that we put in the room and the organization of the room itself is such that teachers can teach in the traditional kind of stand at the front of the room and teach the whole group a lesson, or they can work in small groups. The teachers can kind of roam from station to station, helping small groups of students work at their desks. Every classroom will be equipped with 2 sinks and lots of countertop workspace with cabinet storage space for supplies, so that we support kind of the science, technology, and engineering component of the curriculum within the classrooms. We'll also have a quieter area that will house the classroom library. More comfortable furnishings in this area allow students to kind of just grab a book or work individually on a project. We'll also have a corner of the room that's kind of more private than the rest of the room, maybe shielded by a mobile bookcase or maybe a mobile whiteboard, where students that need more attention on a given assignment can sit with a paraprofessional or with their teacher to receive some one-on-one attention. So I mentioned the anytime, anywhere learning is really about sparking curiosity and encouraging just thinking about the learning opportunities around students wherever they are. So some of the ways the building will support that is we can incorporate signage, whether they're just fixed signs like the water cycle image that's on the screen. We might have that outside, where maybe some of the water from some of the gutter systems is collected and run through a trough or something, and then we can have an explanation of how the water cycle works. Within the building, we try to incorporate writable walls where we can. Those are really intended to encourage collaboration among students and kind of be a medium for students to brainstorm different ideas together. Kind of behind the scenes, the building will also support collection of data through sub-metering. As the building is consuming electricity, water, or other utilities, gas, and as it generates it, maybe through a PV field on the roof with photovoltaics. These sub-meters will collect the information about how much of this energy is being used by the building and how much is being produced by the building in real time. And then through the network access, that data can be disseminated to teachers to use in their curriculum. It can be disseminated to just a fixed digital display in the building. That if maybe you come in the lobby and you can see, at any given day, how much electricity the building's been able to produce that day or that month. And students, of course, will have access to the information as well through their mobile devices in whatever controlled fashion is appropriate for the lessons that they're working on. Outside, we wanted to make sure that there was lots of outdoor opportunities and a variety of natural spaces and built spaces outside too. So you can see with the red arrows that every classroom wing will have access outside directly from their classroom neighborhood, whether they're going out to one of the playgrounds, to some of the flower garden beds, or to a covered outdoor classroom, or maybe it's just to go out to the multi-use field. We've also got a amphitheater built in, kind of at the far end of the site, that can be used as an outdoor classroom space. It can be used for outdoor performances in support of the literacy and arts program in the building. And then there's a successional forest here that we hope to plant some native species and some trees because again, talking about flexibility, you know, students all have their own personalities. They all have their own way of interacting socially with others. A lot of kids want to be right in the middle of the action, but other kids just want to at recess take a book and sit against a tree trunk maybe and read by themselves. So we want to make sure that the outdoor or the development of our site really kind of supports all of those personality types and helps the students kind of grow into themselves through the environment that's provided at the school. As I mentioned, you've got a very strong project-based learning program in Westfield now. I know that Abner Gibbs and Franklin Avenue both participate in the Doctor Classroom, and I'm drawing a blank on the other one, but Project Lead the Way, which is more of a science technology-based program. But these are where outside organizations. I know Project Lead the Way, they're a recent program at Westfield. Westfield State University came to the Franklin School and helped the kids kind of study the Westfield River and erosion patterns and things like that. At Abner Gibbs, Doctor Classroom, a local magazine came by and helped them develop their own magazine for the school. These give the kids just an opportunity to see in the real world how the information they're learning in school is applied to people's careers or just advancing, you know, whether it's a job or their own knowledge. So you've got a very strong program now. We wanted to make sure that the new school supports that in every way possible. And one thing that we're doing is we're providing an STE classroom. This will be a dedicated room with a certified STE professional who will kind of oversee the program. And what they'll do is they'll be responsible for making sure supplies are kept, inventoried, that they'll work with the teachers and staff in the building to understand what they're teaching, their lessons are, and how can they incorporate a project-based learning opportunity into that. And they'll also collaborate with, you know, outdoor or outside professionals who are willing to come and work with the students. So they're kind of overseeing the whole program out of that space. The space is also a home base for the specialized equipment that you need for kind of the more technology-driven curriculum. So we'll have 3D printer in there and other maker supplies. I know there'll be Lego kits. So this will be one location, so we're not buying multiple pieces of those equipments that are spread throughout the building. So again, this is going to be a school for both the Abner Gibbs and the Franklin Avenue Elementary School populations, plus a pre-K program. So what that equates to is 395 kindergarten through fourth grade students and 60 pre-kindergarten students. And based on the demographics and some of the statistics organized by the state through the DESI-DART profile data, you can see that the two schools that we're looking at have a fairly high percentage of high needs and economically disadvantaged students. And so when we're looking at how to support that and how many classrooms are needed, MSBA has something they call a space summary template. And what you do is you first plug in that 395 number, and that will spit out what they think, based on a formula, the right number of classrooms will be. But they don't. That's really a guide. They don't know what the different districts' class size policies are. And in Westfield, the policy really is geared towards, you know, what makes the most sense. It's a recommendation not to exceed a certain number, but really to look at the experience of the teacher, how long the curriculum has been being used, and what the needs of the students are. In this case, if you've got a high percentage of high needs students, we don't want to max out the class size. So we're looking at limiting class sizes to 20 students from kindergarten through fourth grade. Usually at second grade, that 20 students gets picked up a little bit, but they're, like I said, we want to make sure that the students at the new school receive the attention they need to be successful as they move on into the fifth grade and higher. So we came up with 20 students per classroom, where the district came up with that recommendation. And what that equates to basically are 5 neighborhoods, 5 academic neighborhoods with 4 general classrooms in each neighborhood. The exception, of course, being pre-KK, which has the 4 kindergarten plus 2 pre-kindergarten classes. Talking about the academic neighborhoods, as I mentioned, we wanted to create neighborhoods that were organized by grade level. And so what we've got here is a typical diagram of what each neighborhood will typically consist of. They might not all be laid out exactly the same. Some might have spaces that others don't, but at a base level, every neighborhood is going to have 4 general classrooms. It'll have a common breakout space, or that's really an extended learning space that can be shared by the 4 classrooms. There'll be 2 small group rooms, and there'll be a resource room for special ed. This neighborhood in the diagram kind of shows how we might be able to accommodate, say an occupational therapy or physical therapy classroom, as well as a self-contained or essential living skills is the program in Westfield, special ed classroom. For the most part, the special education program is integrated. It's completely integrated at Franklin and Avenue now because they just don't have the program space available. But with the new school, we'll be able to incorporate some dedicated classrooms for a self-contained program. So there will be three self-contained classrooms in the new building. Also, every neighborhood will have student toilet rooms and access outside through the stair tower. Early in the discussions, when we were talking about what to do with the pre-K program, there was a request for a separate entrance. That's something that we'll kind of conclude our conversations on during schematic design. But as of the latest kind of consensus, we've been looking at just locating the pre-kindergarten and kindergarten wing close to the main entrance to the school. So it's easily accessed. It's got a close adjacency to the nurse for the younger students, and to the central office in case there's any need for administrative support. And also the pre-K program is a half-day program. So being near the central office kind of helps with the entrance monitoring it during the middle of the day when students are being dropped off and picked up for the second half of the day. To that end, we've also located the pre-kindergarten classrooms closest to the lobby within this wing. And the idea there again is being that at that half-day point when students are coming and going, we want to kind of minimize any disruption in the corridor outside the kindergarten classrooms where the students will be there longer. So. In Westfield, at this level, we've got a total of 5 special subjects. The MSBA space summary template that I mentioned earlier automatically provides space for gym, art, music, and in our case, STE for the technology program, but not for the health program. But within that educational program that the district developed, they include scheduling information that tells us what the courses are that have to be offered, how long each session of the course runs, and how often each student is to receive that course work throughout a week. So you can see that for the specials, they run 5 of them. They run 50 minutes each, and there's 15 sessions per week are going to be delivered out of the classroom to make sure that all 395 students get their 50 minutes of instruction within a week. We've got a high population of English language learners in the 2 neighborhoods as well. So this is another program space that's not automatically provided for under MSBA's template, but certainly there's a strong need for it in Westfield, or at least in these 2 schools that we're consolidating for the new building in Westfield. So we've got a dedicated classroom. Again, we'll have a specialist teacher running that program, and the district asked that it be located between the kindergarten wing and the first grade wing, where the instructional intensity is the highest. I think that the classroom continues to be used through 4th grade, but the duration of time that the students spend in it per day diminishes as they get older and become more competent with the English language. So That program is located on the first floor, adjacent to the kindergarten wing, easy access, though, from any grade level, really, in the building, without having to enter a specific neighborhood, classroom neighborhood to access it. I talked about the PBIS programs that the two schools run. I think that anybody who looks or has been through the school, students through the schools, or looks on the school websites, you see plenty of references to SOAR over at Avenue Gibbs or HART at Franklin Avenue. It seems to be very popular with the students, and it's something that we want to make sure we continue to support in the new school. So again, we want to make sure we've got offices for 2 adjustment counselors. Within these offices, the counselors might meet with one-on-one with students, or maybe a small group, 1 to 2 students in their offices. But oftentimes they'll travel to the different grade level neighborhoods and use the breakout space for some of their PBIS initiatives that they might be doing with a different grade level. So basically, we just want to make sure that we've got the space for them and that their offices are accessible from any grade level in the building. We've located 1 at each floor. As far as a flexible performance space, I mentioned that you know, sometimes the younger students are a little intimidated to stand and face the whole gymnasium, and with you know, parents and grandparents and everybody. So what we've done is we've located our stage between the gymnasium and the cafeteria, and that gives the flexibility. We'll have openings on both sides to allow flexibility to open to the gym side for larger performances, whether it's the end of the year show or a Christmas concert. And then the cafeteria side can be opened up for smaller venues. Say that a kindergarten class has just a short play that they've been working on that just their parents are going to come and watch. Or maybe first grade is having a spelling bee that the parents are in the other grade, the other classes in their grade level are all attending. So that can be supported on the cafeteria side. Zoning of the building, we want to make sure again that when the building's not being used for school, if it's a weekend or after hours, that the public has kind of free access to the parts of the building that we want them to have free access to, whether it be the gymnasium, or it could be a cafeteria for a school dance or a book fair, or it could be the STE classroom and media center for workshops, community workshops. But not be able to get into some of the more sensitive areas in the building, the students' classrooms or the service utility wing of the building. So at each of those neighborhoods, there's basically a pair of security doors that can be closed and locked at any time, whether after hours or even during the school day. If there was a lockdown event, a single button in the office, or usually actually locate them in a couple different areas in the building. But with the push of a single button, we can have all of these doors close and lock simultaneously. At the second floor, we kind of continue with the same strategy. There's not a lot of program upstairs that's available for the public, but we could have, say, some interior windows looking into the gymnasium for those weekend basketball games. Say someone's got a younger, you know, toddler with them that wants to be able to kind of stretch their legs. You know, the parent can take them either just outside the doors or up here and kind of watch through the window without actually having to be stuck on the bleachers or you know, on the sidelines watching the game. There's also, we've got the counseling programs here. We've got the school psychologist and a couple other programs like that that have a need to interact with outside agencies from time to time, or with families from time to time, or even other staff from other schools. So their offices are kind of located off of this public corridor as well, without a need to get into any of the academic neighborhoods. Security is always a big topic with schools today, and one of the big challenges, of course, that we want to look at is we want to make the school as safe as possible, but we don't want it to feel uninviting or like a prison in doing so. So our strategy basically with security is to set up as many layers as we can between you know, the time someone walks onto the site from the sidewalk the time they can enter a classroom. And one of the first steps to that is at the entrance and how we let people into the building after the school day starts. So it's a decision that will be made ultimately in schematic design, but we'll definitely have one of the sets of doors at the vestibule locked. We typically lock the interior pair of doors just because it gives flexibility in budget if canopies or things like that to protect people from weather can't be afforded on a project. However, if we do provide canopies, we can always move the locks to the exterior vestibule doors too. Either way, once you're in the vestibule, there's nowhere to go except back outside the building unless you talk with the reception at the main office through a video intercom system. If they're comfortable with who you are and what your business is at the school, they will then electronically release the latch on the door and you'll be able to come into the office, sign in, show your ID, whatever the school policies may be. And at that point, they're allowed to move on to whatever their business is in the school. These are just a couple of floor plans. As I'm wrapping up, I realized this morning that I didn't actually include overall floor plans of what the building organization was. I kind of showed it in pieces. So this is, for anybody interested, is kind of the overall look of what the first floor would be. Franklin Street, Route 20, would be to the left. The bus loop would be right in front, where you've got a covered entry kind of showing schematically now, at least, in the main entrance into the building. A nice welcoming lobby space, plenty of opportunities to display student work, as well as to have students gather for lessons, say, or exhibitions with the STEM program. Again, the admin is right at the front door to control access to the building. We start out with the kindergarten, pre-kindergarten, kind of early ed wing. We've got a nurse located right off the lobby. And then, of course, you've got your community shared spaces and common program areas for the students with the media center, the SG classroom, gymnasium, and cafeteria, all on the west side of the building. And then we've got neighborhoods kind of coming off to the east, and then on the second floor to the west as well. But on the first floor, we've got our first grade neighborhood. The location of the media center and STEM classroom was specifically discussed with the district. They really want these spaces to kind of be the highlight and the first thing people see. They want, when you come to this building, they want you to see the work that the students are doing, the knowledge that they're exploring, the information that's available to them. So these spaces are right upon the entry, and again, easy access to people coming in to see exhibits and things. At the second floor, we've got the second grade, third grade, and fourth grade wings, all off, again, that kind of open public circulation corridor, but with their own security doors to make sure that access can be limited at any time. I see the second floor, we've got an art classroom. On the first floor, kind of in the same position as the music program. So those, again, are shared program spaces that we don't want students to have to kind of walk through one of the academic neighborhoods to get to. So those are along that common corridor as well. That is really pretty much the presentation and where the design is at this point. As Dan mentioned earlier, we're just now starting schematic design. What the feasibility study has done through module 3 is kind of identify, okay, what are the rooms that are needed? What's the program that has to be supported in this? And we've kind of laid them out in kind of just a really boxy geometric diagram here that shows that they can all fit, kind of the Tetris pieces all fit into the puzzle here. So that we can get an idea of how big this building will ultimately be. But in the schematic design phase, we're going to get into a lot more detail about, what's the difference between a first grade classroom and a fourth grade classroom? What kind of things need to go into those spaces to make them support the program that's going to be delivered at those different age levels. We'll talk about what the outside of the building is going to be, what the materials will be, what the massing of the building might be. So there's a lot of work that's coming up through the summer, but we're very excited to continue the process. And as Dan mentioned, the educators and the building committee have been extremely gracious with their time This is a tremendous amount of work. Dan mentioned the first submission was 5.5 inches thick. The one that we just put in was a little bit less than that, but still pretty hefty, over 1,000 pages of information that the district has and the building committee has kind of disseminated to us to compile into where we're at today. And we're just going to continue to get more and more detailed with the design as time goes on. So I can't thank the city enough for their input. I always, it kind of amazes me. I put in a lot of hours, but this is what I do. It's what I get paid for. These people are running schools or they're volunteers on a building committee that have their own careers, and they're doing this on top of what their regular responsibilities are. And especially for the school department this past year with COVID and trying to figure out how to quickly transfer to remote teaching. It's just, they were burdened already, and the school project is a real endeavor, and it always amazes me that these people can step up and come through the way they have. So thank you all for your participation. And I guess we're open for questions at this point.
Right. Bert, if you stop sharing, I can see everybody.
Yep.
To see if there are any questions.
There we go.
All right. Are there any questions? Oh, Heather or H, I'm not sure if your name is Heather.
I'm Heather, yes.
Oh, okay, good guess. Thanks for coming. Go ahead. What do you have to ask?
Okay, I actually live in one of the 3 houses on Franklin Street that is going to be facing your, I think the school bus roundabout you have there. You bought the 2 houses in front of me, actually. I just had a couple of safety concerns because Franklin Street has become very clustered or very high traffic area. I was just wondering what kind of safety measures were you going to put in once this all becomes developed? Because at this point you have a lot of issues with Franklin Street and the traffic.
So
it's a great question.
Part of the next phases of the project will include a traffic study that will really analyze what's going on Franklin Street. I can tell you that we've already had discussions. You know, our office and our design consultants have had discussions with the DPW in town. Early on, we were showing a crosswalk right there at the bus loop, and they asked us, actually, can you please pull that back to it's the street that kind of comes in across from the National Guard base. And it was based on their own knowledge of visibility, turning left turn lanes and things like that. So it's something that we are thinking about. The DPW already has asked us about some modifications to do with our very early kind of schematic designs. But we're going to have an in-depth study done specifically on not only the pedestrian, but the vehicular traffic and how to make sure that it's all accommodated safely.
Okay. Okay. Just another question or two, if I may.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I was just wondering about your special education classrooms. Now, which part are they located? Are they located in the off of Franklin? Are they in the Franklin area, or are they on the other side where the wetlands are, the river there is?
The special education or the outdoor classrooms?
The special education classrooms.
Okay, so in the building, we've got special education classrooms. There's something called a resource room. It's about half a classroom size, and there's one in every classroom neighborhood. So whether you're in the pre-K wing, the first grade, second grade, third grade, or fourth grade, you'll always have that room. And that's where students that are in following the push-in model, that are normally with their other peers in the general classroom setting, they'll be able to, if they've got scheduled interventions or areas that they need to work on, they'll have time in those resource rooms with the sped teachers, where they come out of their class just for a period of the day and then go back in with their regular classroom peers. There's also, we're going to introduce a self-contained program at this school, which is the students that really are outside the general classroom population. They're in their classrooms all day long, full time. And those are going to be distributed. So I think that we've got one at the first grade level and then one at the third and the fourth grade levels right now. And that's really just a factor of how the space, the Tetris pieces, I call them, fit into the puzzle. and making sure that they fit. We cannot put them all in like one area of the building. In
Okay.
Massachusetts, they prohibit that, and it's just not something that we would do anyways. I know when I grew up as a kid, there was that program, and it was in the corner of the building, and everybody knew what it was, and so it becomes stigmatized. And
Right.
so the Department of Education, SE, elementary and secondary education, they review the project, they'll review our plans during this next phase, the schematic design phase, and that specifically is something that they're going to look at, is where have we placed the special education program? Is it distributed enough throughout the rest of the building so that you don't kind of create any of those stigmatized areas of the building? So
Okay, well, the other thing with that was, where is it located? Because if it's closer to Franklin, see, I worked with disabled adults, and they were mentally and physically disabled. And I know, like, some of them like to run. Some of them like to run out of the classrooms and stuff like that. And even if you're outside with them and doing stuff outside them in the environment, they would like to run. And my concern is, because of Franklin and how hazardous it is, how is that going to work? Is it near Franklin Street, or?
no. So
Okay.
none of the exits from the classroom wings to the outdoor playground areas empty towards Franklin Street. They're all going to that courtyard between the two wings, or they go towards like the dike for the river, the north half of the site where the existing school sits now. So they'd be going that way, not towards Franklin Street, if they manage to get as far as out the door. So.
All right, sounds good. You did a really great job. It looks really great. I'm actually excited. I have a little guy who would probably be entering at the time it's going to be opening.
Oh,
So that's an option for us. That's pretty nice.
good.
You did a good job. Thank you.
Well, the credit really goes to the building committee and the school department, who's kind of informed all of our decisions along the way. So.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
I have a question. Jeffrey Goslin, 330 Elm Street, number 305, Westfield.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Jeff.
My question's really directed probably more towards the mayor and the councilors that are still here. I'm thinking of when this project first got rolled out. As a city resident, lifelong member of Westfield here, we started talking about it as an addition to an existing building. And now all of a sudden I'm hearing the word new school building. And I think Bert explained there was a schematic done and there was a need for a brand new school. So my question really is where is the city at with bonding? Because we can over bond here and get ourselves in a little bit of trouble, because we've got many, many schools that really need a lot of repair work done. The high school in particular, I mean, that was worked on, it started in 2005 when my mother was on the school committee, way back. So these discussions have been going for a very, very, very long time now. And, you know, I guess we're looking at a new school according to your plan. So my question really is for the mayor, and if the councilors are still here, where are we at with bonding? Because the intermediate school, which was the old North Middle, now it's called Intermediate School on the north side of the city. I mean, that's only 20 years old. That was opened in 2001. I don't even know if that's still paid off yet or not. So I doubt it's paid off yet. So I'm wondering about bonding, how that's going to play a role in the overall cost of the new school, I guess.
Jeff, thank you for your questions. We appreciate that, obviously, because these are expensive buildings, and they're also a major investment for the city, but they're not short-term investments. They take place over a lot of years. In this case, we're looking at bonding this school project over 30 years, and the MSBA has agreed to, or I guess agree is the right word, right, Dan? The reimbursement rate to the city of Westfield is pretty high. We're looking at upwards of 70% reimbursement. Dan, I know you wanted to answer something there, so go right ahead.
Yeah,
what I was going to answer Mr. Gosling's question, it's an excellent question, actually, because he is correct. We're required by the school building authority to look at 4 options for each of the grade configurations that they allowed us to study. One of those options was touched upon by Bert, is a no-build option, and just to bring the existing building up to code. One of those options is an ad reno, and one of those options is a new school. We were heading in a direction of trying to reuse the existing school. Unfortunately, the site is constrained to be able to add on to that existing school and have adequate outdoor space for the children. When the city council correctly purchased those 2 properties, it really opened up an opportunity for us to look at a new school. And even when we had the additional properties, a new school was not something that the building committee was really marching to. They were really cognizant to the cost of a new school, and we studied it. And one of the things that came out of our study was that with the school building authorities' participation at 71.2% is about what we are expecting to get from the MSBA. That ratio changes every 2 years, but it's relatively stable. It may go up a point or down a point or 2. But that MSBA 71.2% made the costs of all the projects very similar. So it became a question of, do we rehabilitate an existing school and turn this into a 3-year project, or do we build a new school in 14 months and not have disruption for 3 years when the cost difference was really, really small? I think it was less than $1 million difference. So, and the school is a 50-year school, just like the middle school was designed and built for 50 years. This school will be designed and built for 50 years. It'll last for 100 if it's taken care of, but we're required to certify that it'll last for 50 years. So your question's great. Your building committee really struggled with the new school versus addition renovation. They also struggled with single story versus 2-story. The single story option was another one of these options that required so many phases that it just became cost prohibitive to do. So we've studied everything that you asked us to study. I can't answer the bonding question, but I think that the city council will be making those decisions when they fully fund the project come September, October, and November when we go before the council.
May I ask a second question? And this is more, I guess, for the developers, Bert and Daniel. So we talked about an auditorium, I know, in the past, and a full theater arts studio, perhaps. I'll give you a little background. I work at Northampton High School, and that building was built in 1940. About a decade ago, they renovated. The city of Northampton made a decision to do renovations. It's phenomenal. It's absolutely gorgeous. If you get a chance, call Lori Valancourt, the principal. She'll give you a tour and see it. If you've been to Springfield Symphony Hall, that's what that auditorium looks like. It's just amazing. And I understand MSBA doesn't reimburse for those types of auditoriums today. But what most people don't realize about Northampton High School is there's also a little box theater inside that high school. And I checked it out just in the past couple weeks. It seats about 120 people. It's ADA compliant. It has a stage and curtain. You could do lighting on that stage, and you could do musical performances. It has an area down below. And that little box theater is utilized from everything from teacher workshops to conferences to PTA meetings, you name it. That little box theater is done for many things. as well as teachers and classrooms on a daily basis go in there and teach classes. So at least it's an option to look at. It's about the size, I would say, of a standard classroom, like two and a half standard classrooms that you would see in a normal size. So it's about 12 rows of seating. But it's a theater, so it's a real option if you can't utilize the full large auditorium. I don't know, I'd like to see, because we're investing in a new school here in Westfield. It's in the downtown district. I really would be disappointed with the cafeteria plan piece that you proposed here. I've been to Munger Hill and Paper Mill schools, and I don't care for that layout. You can't really do a full theatrical production, you know, on that type of a stage. So those are some of my thoughts. Thank you.
So I think if I'm not mistaken, you brought that up at one of our building committee meetings also. The final design, as you could see looking at the actual drawings, it's a square. It's an area. It's colored purple, and what it's doing is we're putting aside a stage that can work on two sides, in a larger setting and in a smaller setting. It won't have theatrical seating, but I wouldn't discount that it couldn't be used for performances until the final design of the lighting and the final design of the curtains and the audiovisual components that go into it, and they are going to come. You know, we haven't gotten that far on the design. I think what we have demonstrated as a project team is a dedication to the arts, the sciences, the engineering, and the technology, and that's coming directly from the school department as well as the elected officials. So I don't give up hope that this is not going to be something that you're going to like, enjoy, or use, because I think in the end you're going to.
Yeah, I would say I'm not familiar with Munger Hill's setup, but I know that in East Hampton we're doing a similar thing with the gym, and that was a big concern of a lot of people in that community. They wanted an auditorium as well. We actually toured a few schools, and they came around. They changed their mind. One of the schools, it was in the Worcester area. They actually wanted an auditorium. They didn't get it, but they were on a campus, so the adjacent building had one. And they started out when they moved in, traveling to the other building to do their performances. And then once they were in the building for, you know, half the year, they realized that the amenities that were provided within the gym, as far as theatrical lighting, the curtains on the stage, they were really surprised, and they no longer go to the other building. They do all their performances right there. So I know that there's, you know, I think all of us think back to what the cafetorium or the gymatorium was when we went through schools. But hopefully we'll do justice to the arts program and the spaces that we do develop, however they're developed, and whatever the program spaces ultimately end up being. So we will have more than just you know, gym lights for school performances. There'll certainly be performance lighting as part of the final design. Not like the Springfield, not like the Springfield Symphony Hall, but it'll be nice for an elementary school for sure.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Don't apologize.
Well, no, what he was just saying, so will the remaining or the existing elementary schools, even the middle schools or high schools, going to be getting more funding at any chance to upgrade the things that have been left behind? In a sense, are they going to get more funding to be able to repair like air conditioner systems and like the ventilation and like pavement for the buses to get there and stuff like that? Is that available? Is that going to happen in the next 5 years at all?
So I think I might be best to answer that. So the air conditioning systems you talked about at the intermediate and middle schools are actually being repaired this summer, July 1st.
Awesome.
And other repairs, we're trying to do some paving as well. So we are kind of checking off the list as we can. And that's we are working on a long-term capital plan. But for right now, we have so many things to check off that you just rattled off that are well on my radar, trust me.
Yeah.
And we are working on that with the city as well. So so the answer is yes, as much as I would like. Is it ever? I mean, really. Sorry, Don, but you know what I'm talking about when we'd love to pave every driveway. We'd love to do everything, but we're taking care of the most critical issues at the moment.
Okay. Just another question. So South Middle School right now, the one near the big Y over here on West Silver Street, I believe it is. We usually do like the recreational stuff like basketball and all that kind of stuff there. So now is this Franklin Ave School going to be taking over that? Or is it still going to be over in Southville? How is that going to change?
So I actually think there's probably not enough space in town to accommodate all of the organizations that want to use space. Like we have to say no to some folks. So I think having both facilities available is actually just a better thing for the community on the whole. And the middle school is larger. It is, and it has an auditorium, for example, that sits a lot of people. So it'll still be used for outside organizations, definitely.
Okay. And so it's for like, okay, so that will be, so I don't mean to like say or harp on the whole Franklin Street kind of thing going, but I'm just a little concerned in the aspect that when you guys narrowed it down from a 4-lane or the 2-lane, it cut traffic tremendously. And then now adding this in, I'm just concerned that it's just going to be back at the thing again. And literally right across the street. And it's kind of rough. Do we have any ideas of what you guys are thinking on doing about?
We really don't at this point, other than like some early conversations I mentioned with DPW. We'll really we'll hire traffic engineers basically. I'm an architect, so I can talk to these people, but I'm certainly far from an expert on traffic. And so we bring in people who, this is what they do all the time. So they'll study it and then we'll receive a report from them that as an architect, I'm able to understand. We'll share it with the building committee, make sure that they all understand what it is, and then we'll make our best recommendations based on that. But at this point, we haven't had them come on board yet, so I wouldn't want to kind of venture a guess as to what some of their ideas might be. So.
Are our sidewalks and everything going to be getting redone as well as this project's going to go forward? Because we're a main walkway in front here. So I wasn't sure.
That anything related to the site, we have a cap from the Mass School Building Authority. That's when we keep talking about MSBA, it's the Mass School Building Authority. There's a cap on what they'll pay for. So as we march down, we'll make a determination of what the city can afford. And whether some of the sidewalks can be done with block grants or things of that nature, we can look into and try and do it in conjunction with some other applications. But I don't want to make a promise that you're going to have utopia when this project is done.
I know.
Right? We're trying to be realistic with everybody, but we want your input because you might steer us left or you might steer us right. You're a neighbor, and we're going to be disrupting your life there for 14 months as we're going through the construction. And as much as I'd like to tell you it's going to be perfect, it won't be.
I know. No, because my concern is that when Franklin, the crossing guard here, because it's actually right on the other side of my street here, all the cars park along my side of my house. We got people blaring music. There's, you know what I mean? So there's not a lot of control over here. And then now you're doing this. So then you're gonna have more traffic. And it's just a little concerning because I do have younger kids here. I'm trying to have a family, home life here. But I understand. I live on a main drag, so I understand that aspect. It was just, a little bit of a concern because we have a lot of traffic going around here. And it's,
I ask you to keep an open mind and give us a chance. And when you see our plans, you may like them. So,
Yeah, no, I think this is great. I really like the whole idea. I love the plan, the layout and everything. I think it's great. I love the special education because that's, I worked with special education for a very long time. So I think this is actually great. I'm very excited actually. So just concerned about the safety in Franklin. That's about it.
So if I could interject, so while we're talking about the school as a whole, on the city side, the departments such as engineering, DPW, water, police, community development, we're also having the sidebar conversations on, we understand the MSBA can only do this. So what do we need to do to support this from a city standpoint? So we'll have those conversations, especially about, egress to the site, utilities to the site, all of that type of conversations will happen internally in the city, and then they'll be brought before the school building committee to have more conversations with the public. So I thank you for your questions, because I think what it does is it allows us all to kind of look at it from all different perspectives. So as you're thinking your questions, I know the superintendent is probably going to state this at the end, but there is an email address that he has established for this project. Please email these questions, email these suggestions. You can email them directly to me in the city, if you want, and we can have those discussions on a city level for how we're going to support the school moving forward.
Okay.
I want to echo what Tammy said, and thank you. It was Heather, was it?
Yeah.
Heather, thanks. I want to thank you and Jeff and the others who are watching tonight. We're presenting this to speed as far as where we are up to this point. There's still a lot to do, and we know that we're going to come back to the neighbors and the residents of the city constantly for their input, for their questions. Your job is to help us think about things that we may not have considered, but there's also a lot of things that we know we need to consider, but we just haven't gotten to them yet because that's not the phase of the progress of the project that we're in yet. But Dan and Bert and others have a pretty big shopping list, a laundry list of for us to to do, and we've got a lot of work yet before we even put a shovel in the ground. So there's going to be plenty of time, and as Tammy said, please take advantage of that suggestion box, so to speak. And if you have questions or suggestions about this school project, make sure you notify us, because we'll incorporate those and let the other building community people know, as well as the city departments that Tammy mentioned, that are all going to have a say. We recognize that this has an impact on the neighborhood. We are very sensitive to that, and that's why we've been trying to do things that are really good for the Franklin Street, Franklin Avenue area, and we're going to continue that. So, but thank you for your questions.
it's also another reason why the building committee is meeting every other week all the way through the summer, because those decisions need to be made by the committee as a whole, and they're dedicated to do so.
Can I ask just one more thing? I'm interested in FEMA and how that's been playing a role with the building of this new school, because you have the armory right next door. And if, God forbid, if there ever an emergency or disaster, are we prepared in how we build and put this school together to work in conjunction with our FEMA, our federal agencies, and our armory, which is right next door?
So is the question, will the operation of the school interfere with the operation of the National Guard and potentially FEMA? Is that your question?
No, I'm asking if there was ever an emergency. Are there plans in place where if they need to utilize a public school building and come in to that building?
So
how would that play out? And are you planning on that? Make the building, when you build the building, like are the doors a certain size or things like that matter?
So I'm going to take a stab at that if I can, Bert.
Or Dan.
It's a pretty good question, actually. And the question is, can the school be used in an emergency? And that's a management decision for the school committee and the superintendent of schools on a policy basis. From a standpoint of a community basis, the school is being designed so it can be used at night for basketball and events for using the spaces that are public that Bert had indicated. It is also a school that is being designed securely such that it has lockable areas and intruders can't roam the school. We're in a different age than we were 20 years ago when schools were being built, and we're designing them far more less freely to roam a school. And all of those plans, including plans with security, fire, are negotiated and dealt with the local authority having jurisdiction, which in this case is the fire chief and the police chief. We are required to sit down with our security consultants to go through our plans on the school with them and make sure that some, if not all of their recommendations are adhered to. I am sure that if there's a master plan in town for a catastrophic event, then if a plan is currently in place, I'm sure it would be modified to include this school building. If the plan's not in place, then they have a different plan that doesn't use school buildings.
Yeah, I think you did a good job on that. I'm just going to add a little bit to say that we have sat with the police department and fire department already, even in these early phases, and kind of got their consensus. They were actually the preferred option that's being pursued by the building committee was actually their favorite option too, for a number of reasons as far as access and security go. I don't know, nobody's mentioned it to us yet that there might be a possibility for the school to be used as a shelter. There are different levels of shelters, certainly. And I know that, you know, at the base level, if you're just looking for a place to accommodate people, say, you know, forget a national kind of emergency, but say it's just a storm knocks out power in Westfield for a week. You know, there's levels of shelters where you know, we can make sure that the kitchen equipment operates, or at least something is there to keep perishables cold for people. You might not have hot food to serve. There'd be outlets to charge cell phones and things available on the school's or backup power. So that kind of thing is very easy to accommodate. If you start getting into you know, a full-blown emergency shelter, it adds a lot of expense. So I think that's probably less likely to see ultimately, but to be able to accommodate kind of that intermediate shelter for you know, a localized event that lasts a few days, much more realistically accommodated in the school, and actually wouldn't take much additional work or effort on or to support that kind of a thing than what we'd be providing anyways in the school. So, and then as far as door sizes are really based on egress codes. So you won't have any doors really in the building that are less than 3 feet wide, and oftentimes your egress doors are wider than that. So there's plenty of capacity to get people in and out of the building in an emergency situation. So.
And remember, there's been an elementary school on that site for a long time, and I know we're not building the new school with in conjunction with plans or conversations with the National Guard or FEMA, but I happen to be having a conversation with the Adjutant General who oversees all the armories in the Commonwealth. And he told me that they love the building. They love having schools as neighbors to their armory buildings. They're just nice, compatible uses. And he's very happy that that Franklin Avenue School is there and has been there for so long. There's never been a problem or an issue. So it's a pretty, again, compatible use for the two buildings next to each other.
I have a quick question. In kind of conjunction with that, you know how like Home Depot has those storm doors for flooding? Now, since you're on the river base, will you have that also on the building? Because I remember, I think Hurricane Irene, we were getting evacuated because of flooding. So I was just wondering, is that going to be in the plans as well in case if anything like that happens?
That's another one of those things we haven't really gotten deep into discussions
Okay.
on. So
Okay.
we
No, I was just wondering.
we are aware of what the flood zones and the different categories that are in the area are. That side of the site closest to Franklin Street is the highest area of the site. It looks like a flat site, but there is actually about a 3-foot grade difference. And
Oh,
it's the lowest out by the dike. It's highest towards Franklin Street.
oh,
So
okay.
we're aware of what the flood zones are, but we haven't gotten into the detailed discussions yet about, you know, special flood doors or anything like that. So.
Just wondering. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Okay, I'm gonna switch
Stefan, do
to
you want to
page.
give that email address that Tammy alluded to?
Absolutely. It is Westfield Elementary School at schoolsofwestfield.org. One more time, Westfield Elementary School at schoolsofwestfield.org. And I actually just logged in during this call, and we have no new emails to report at this moment, but feel free to email that. I do check it regularly. And we actually have now an agenda item that we will be discussing these emails at our every other week school building committee throughout the summer. All right, if there are no other questions, I think that's it. Going once, going twice. Again, it's not a school committee meeting, so we can just wrap up officially. We don't need a vote here. All right, thank you, everybody. Bert, Dan, and great job as always, and we really appreciate it. And we'll see you soon. Okay, thanks,
guys.
everyone.
Good night.